Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of Cracking the Code with Chris Bowen, the founder of ClearData, a leading healthcare cybersecurity company. So we're joined today to discuss Amazon's recent acquisition of One Medical. And recently, we've seen Amazon making a big push into the healthcare space. They're adding to their acquisition of PillPack in 2019, and they're clearly positioning themselves to become a dominant healthcare player that is building out very solid like vertical integration. And Chris, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
So I am a member of One Medical. I love the service. It's great. You can go in and make your appointments with your phone, with your app. You can get your medical records the way it should be, like any other great uh, company does and have been doing for the last couple of years. I'm excited about the acquisition in one way. In a certain way, there's going to be a lot of great synergies between the PillPack. If you think about the distribution network, for example, of Amazon and the speed by which they can ship medicine, it can be an astoundingly great experience for a patient. There's a other side to that though, and that's kind of the privacy side. How do you keep the data from intertwining itself with the Amazon shopping experience? And so there's going to have to be some pretty good governance inside Amazon to make sure that that data is not going to commingle, make sure that the workers within Amazon adhere to the privacy rule and the security rule for HIPAA, which is minimum necessary principles. And let's not share data where it shouldn't be shared. But by all means, the vast network of Amazon will allow data to be shared where it should be, and in theory, should enhance the customer or the patient experience rather. So I'm a little bit excited. I'm a little bit trepidatious. We'll see what happens.
100%, 100%. And just like you mentioned, I mean, under HIPAA, a lot of that data will have to be kept separate, right? I mean, Amazon already collects a tremendous amount of data through its e-commerce, cloud storage, online advertising, and other streaming businesses. How concerned do you think we should be about data privacy and the potential that very intimate PHI could be used to market to consumers? Because unfortunately, we've seen that with healthcare companies in the past, and I'm curious to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, we've seen it with healthcare companies. We've seen it with the CVSs of the world. We've seen it with non-healthcare companies where they're using not necessarily PHI, but healthcare related data to drive things like coupons and based on shopping habits and things like that. So there is some room for concern for sure. It'll be easier to segregate the data than it will be to keep the employees out of the data. For example, I could certainly set up a database, a series of databases, data lakes, whatever we want to configure, for example, with all this data. But if I can then, as an Amazon worker, who wants to increase a product line or the sale of a product line or something related to health, I could, in theory, potentially go in and start to leverage some of those insights from that data. Now, what's going to have to happen is during an acquisition like this, typically the patient consent will flow up to the organization that has acquired their medical practice. In my case, One Medical. In many others' case, One Medical. And so how does that privacy policy, how does that consent that the patient has provided to One Medical, how does that translate? How does that translate to a company that now can do so much more than just the One Medical could? And how do I, as a patient, say, hey, Amazon, I want to give you my consent for this, but not necessarily that? And the consent management is a thing. It's a big headache in healthcare. It's a big headache everywhere. So especially understanding is John Smith, and validating some of that identity. It's getting easier with some good technology, but I want to see some information about how Amazon is going to manage that consent, how it's going to change the consent to be more explicit based on the use case of just purely One Medical. And I want them to really give the patient that opportunity to make that choice. You're seeing that in many drafts of privacy legislation. You're seeing it in CCPA, you're seeing it in GDPR, where you actually have to give explicit consent to certain things that your data is used for. So my hope is that they're probably already on this. In full disclosure, Amazon is a partner of ClearData, and we value a lot of their products and their services that do help make healthcare better. So that's one angle, Brian.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like very important topics there about consent management and a lot of these large amounts of data that Amazon's going to collect. And now that Amazon is building such a dominant vertically integrated healthcare business, do you think they will be more reluctant to share data with other providers or companies? And what are the implications in terms of interoperability between the different parts of the healthcare ecosystem now that they will have such a large presence there?
I think because Amazon is already really good at interoperability, they're really good at ETL and FHIR-based transactions. I think you're going to see better data sharing. I think you're going to see better interoperability. You will probably see, knowing the brain trust behind the Amazon innovation teams, you're going to see enhancements in some of the services that they provide that are going to be leveraged for those healthcare organizations that are outside of the walls of Amazon. That's an exciting part of this whole thing, because when you get a giant like Amazon really focus on that innovating machine, you see benefits to the entire world, honestly, at that scale. Again, it comes back to how do we do it in a way that protects patient privacy, protects the security of the data? How do we make sure that it doesn't commingle with places where it shouldn't? And Amazon is very good about building tools, for example, S3, simple storage, there's a bucket of whatever you want to put in it, but they make it really great from a lifecycle management perspective. They have some amazing tools for tracking and tracing data. So they shouldn't have a big problem. In fact, I think they'll probably get to flex their muscle a bit on some of the innovations they've already created for this kind of a use case.
Absolutely. And now that they have such a massive distribution network, they have, PillPack, and now they have a provider network as well that they're going to expand on. No one has a crystal ball, but if you had to make a prediction for the future, what's a logical next step? Where do you think they'll expand to next to continue to grow their presence?
I can only think of it as through a patient's eyes, because I'm very familiar with One Medical. Wouldn't it be cool if my blood test that I can get right in the office at One Medical, wouldn't it be cool for that result to automatically go and be analyzed at lightning fast speed, so that before I get out of the door, I can understand my results? I bet that's an innovation that's going to come out of this. Wouldn't it be cool if that same medication that I need can actually show up before I get to my house? In many cases, when I order something from Amazon, you've done this and millions of others have done it too. You'll order something and before you have a chance to go to the front porch, it's already there. So wouldn't that be cool as a patient to see that PillPack delivery happen without you having to go to a pharmacy? There are some amazing innovations that we can put in place, or that they can put in place to make the experience better. So those are a couple of ideas. Interoperability, bringing some tools to the industry, to the world around consent management. You got to know that they're working on that. If they're not, then they should be. But it's an exciting innovation. I still am concerned about privacy, I'll be honest with you. There have been reports in the past where certain Amazon employees will grab, merchant data and try to undercut the merchant that's selling the best product. Those are widely publicized on, podcasts like The Journal and others in the past. Let's just hope that there's a strong governance around this so that that kind of thing won't happen.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you there. It's a very exciting time for healthcare innovation. And as we close out this episode, I'm curious if you have any closing thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience before we return for the next episode.
I would look for what you can see in the Amazon product, the we call it the console in the cloud world, but in the shopping cart and the interface the website that you interact with. Um, it would be pretty neat for Amazon to build that in a way that allows me to manage my record, allows me to manage my, rights under HIPAA to know who has had any kind of access to my data. It would be great to be able to see my medical record and do so in a way that you can be shared with every other provider that I'm part of. Again, if we go to the datamap.org, it's one of my favorite places to exhibit or show how many places your data goes with one interaction with a healthcare provider. It would be great if Amazon could actually start to show that lineage of data and where it goes and where it shouldn't go, and allow us to provide some parameters for that kind of a sharing model. So I'm excited about it, a little nervous about it, but with these kinds of things comes some amazing innovation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it probably tracks back to a similar theme of with great power comes great responsibility, right? They can do a lot of good. And now it's just critical that they're super mindful of that and are very responsible with the data and the distribution they're building out.
Yeah, that's very well said, Ryan. It's a great point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we appreciate everyone tuning in to this episode of Cracking the Code, and we'll see you soon for the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.